Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the DeCypher The Matrix podcast. I'm super excited that it's 11:11 and I am relaunching the podcast to get into some deeper messages. We're going to talk a little bit more about the whole spiritual concept as opposed to what is actually spiritual awakening or what is more of spirituality that becomes self-abandonment. So just to start off, in case you haven't seen these videos or listened to the podcast yet, I'm Kayla. I'm a therapist, intuitive, and lifelong student of what it really means to wake up. Today, we're going to talk about something that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but is also deeply liberating once you see it. I want to explore how a lot of what's getting sold as modern spirituality or a new age awakening is actually a very seductive form of self-abandonment. It looks like awakening, it sounds like awakening, but at the root, it's often another layer of deception, another costume our ego wears to avoid being fully human. And I say that with so much compassion because I've been there myself. So let's start with the phrase that gets thrown around all the time, love and light. We've all heard it. Maybe we've even said it. Now, there's nothing wrong with love or light. They're beautiful energies. But what happens in the new age space is that love and light becomes this spiritual bypass in a sense. A way to skip the real healing work and just stay in the high vibes. We're told things like, don't focus on the negative, raise your vibration, or your pain is just a story. And so we start to believe that being spiritual means never feeling low, never being triggered, never expressing anger, grief, or even fear. But that's not awakening. That's suppression dressed up in white robes. When we deny the full spectrum of our emotions, we disconnect from the deepest truth of who we are. So let's talk about the performance aspect for a second, because this is a huge one in our culture right now. We're living in an age where healing has become content, and social media can make it so easy to perform spiritually instead of embodying it. You know what I mean? The perfect altar shot, the effortless morning routine, the goddess energy selfies. And again, no shame. We've all participated in that in some level. But what starts to happen is that when we begin to perform our worthiness, we start curating an identity of being awakened. But it's still the ego, just in a prettier costume. Instead of letting the false die, we dress it in linen and crystals and call it conscious. So why do we do this? Why is this version of spirituality so seductive? Because it feels safer than being real. For many of us, especially empaths and sensitive souls, the human experience has felt so painful. We've experienced trauma, rejection, loss, and somewhere deep down we learned it's not safe to feel. So when we find spirituality, it feels like a huge relief, a place where we can finally transcend all that pain. But the truth is, that's not healing. That's just relocating the pain into our spiritual self. We end up abandoning the very parts of us that need love the most. And that's why a true awakening is messy. It's emotional. It's embodied. It's the courage to be human again. When I first started waking up, I was so focused on getting it right. I wanted to meditate the way out of the suffering. I thought if I could just be high vibe enough, I'd never feel the heaviness again. But what actually set me free was learning to sit with what's real. The grief, the doubt, the anger, without trying to fix it. Because that's what true spirituality is. It's not escaping the human experience, it's embodying it. It's being able to hold light and shadow in the same breath, to say, I'm divine and deeply human. When you stop abandoning yourself to look enlightened, you begin to feel peace in places you used to feel pain. So if you've been caught in the performance, if you've been judging yourself for not being high vibe enough, I want you to know you're doing spirituality the wrong way. You're just ready for a deeper layer of truth. Integration doesn't look like perfection. It looks like grounding, rest, honesty, tears, forgiveness. It looks like therapy, journaling, shadow work, walking barefoot on the earth, and remembering that you are already enough exactly as you are. The real awakening is when we stop performing divinity and start living truth. So take a deep breath with me right now. You don't have to choose enlightenment. You just have to remember yourself. That's what healing really is. Coming home to yourself, to the parts you abandoned when you thought you had to be perfect. Thank you so much for listening today. If this resonated for you, share it with someone who's tired of performing their awakening and ready to embody it. If you haven't already joined me on Instagram, it's the Lightworkers Sanctuary. And you can follow me there for more grounded, real conversations about healing, intuition, and awakening through truth, not illusion.